It's
It is? It says it
very,
is?
very good.
Okay. Very nice. Let me just check on my screen also. Here it says it's going a little
Yeah,
slow.
this is beautiful.
I think we are, yeah. Okay. Fantastic. And I think we are broadcasting. Let's see. Come on, Facebook. Yes, very nice. Okay. Well, so welcome and Hare Krishna to all those of us who are on Zoom here, and again, all the devotees who are watching us on Facebook. So we will start our session here today, coming to the last verse of the 4th chapter, which is a very big achievement. So we can all give ourselves a round of applause here. Do you know how to do that? Yeah, on Zoom.
Yeah.
All right, like that. Okay, so we'll start going into the last verse after these brief prayers to the spiritual master. Om Bhagyanatimarandhasya Jnana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha. Okay, so what's the verse number today? What do you say is the verse number?
42.
42.
42. Okay.
42.
All right, so let's go and look at 42. But before we go to 42, we're not going to 42 so fast and so quick. We'll do a little bit of a recap, right? So first chapter of Bhagavad-gita talks about what?
Ah,
The
One line.
battlefield.
One line, yeah.
Kurukshetra.
Dharmakshetra, Kurukshetra.
Shraddha yoga.
Yeah. Yeah, so
Vishad
basically it is
yoga.
about Arjun's Vishad. How from
Serving the
distress,
armies.
right? It is from distress. And from distress, yoga means to connect to God. So it is this Vishad that Arjun had. Arjun was put into Vishad so that he could connect to God. So that means that whenever there is Vishad in our lives, that's an opportunity when we connect to Lord even harder and tighter, right? So, okay, chapter 2.
Gita summarize.
Summary of the whole
Summarization.
Gita.
Whole Gita.
Okay, yeah, but give me the crux of chapter 2. What is the main thing that anybody who's new to the concept or to the philosophy, chapter number 1, fine, it's a battlefield, it's a very normal thing. Arjun is there, he's saying, how can I kill my relatives? That's a very normal thing, right? But when we go to chapter number 2, what is something which is out of the world that we get to know?
It's that we are all souls only, no body. So
Exactly.
as we cannot do, means you cannot cut, as we change our garments, we just soul just change, transmigrates from
Right,
one body to
right,
another.
right. Yeah. Yeah. So that is the revelation. That's the biggest revelation of chapter 2, which is very different from what colleges will teach, universities will teach normally, right? Or schools will teach normally. So the biggest thing is that the introduction of the concept of soul and the immortality of the soul starts in chapter 2 of Bhagavad-gita, and Krishna will define the properties of the soul, which basically you are distinguishing between matter and the soul, right? So that is called Sankhya Yoga, where by pursuing that particular route of gathering knowledge, so you get the knowledge about the material, right? And in the second chapter, it says that those who have studied the nature of both, those who have studied the nature of both the matter as well as the spirit, say that of the matter will never sustain and spirit will never die, right? So those who have got the knowledge of both the things, have studied, they gain knowledge, and they will come to this conclusion, right? And so after talking about soul, so when we gather the knowledge about the soul, that is different from the matter, right? So slowly, by extrapolating about soul, knowing more about the soul, and then from where the soul is coming, you will ultimately get connected to the Lord, right? So through Sankhya, or through empirical knowledge of trying to understand things around us and our characteristic difference from what is around them, you will reach, right, Sankhya Yoga. And so, but that is almost till a little more than half of chapter 2 of Bhagavad-gita. So then Krishna makes a switch completely and starts bringing in Buddhi Yoga, right? So what is Buddhi Yoga? Is that you gain some Buddhi intelligence, right? So you gain some knowledge and then you apply your intelligence on that knowledge. For example, you're seeing the sun rises in the east and the west, right? And it rises every day and it rises punctually and the seasons come and go. So you see there's an order around your life. And then you start to think about that could be a higher intelligence. There's something else that's controlling this, because I'm not controlling it. I'm not the one who's responsible for maintaining that the rains fall and earthquakes come and fires come and, trees grow and things like that. Sun rises, moon rises, sun sets, moon sets. I'm not responsible, but somebody must be doing it for it to happen in such a methodical manner like that, right? So you gain the knowledge and then you use your intelligence properly. And then the best use of intelligence is to use everything that you have in the service of Krishna. And basically, when you use your intelligence to do devotional service to the Lord. So the next part of the chapter number 2 basically talks about that, right? What does chapter 3 tell you?
Karma Yoga.
We spent a lot of time in chapter number 3, right? So it talks about Karma Yoga, right? Does chapter 3 talk about knowledge at all? So let's do a recap here, right? Because as we are understanding and as we are reading the Bhagavad-gita, as you go from one chapter to another chapter, a good way of remembering what is there in one chapter to another chapter and to get a flow and to always have that bigger picture of Bhagavad-gita. Again, there's a warning that I'm giving here, and that is that Krishna had the blessings from his spiritual master that his words are going to be always fresh. And this is Krishna's word. Bhagavad-gita is Krishna's words. So you will find in the Bhagavad-gita that you read one chapter and everything is fine. You go to the next chapter, you come back to the previous chapter, it's all new. Because that is Krishna, a blessing for Krishna, that, every time that you read the Bhagavad-gita, you'll get a new taste out of it, some new knowledge, some new information you'll get. And that is the beauty. And that's why you see that, just one book, Bhagavad-gita, is sufficient for us to spend our whole life with this, because that is the manual for life. It tells you what to do and what not to do, right? The ultimate is man mana bhav mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskaru, right? Or sarvadhanman parityajya mam ekam sharanam vraja, right? So Krishna is openly declaring what you're supposed to do, right? Everything else that we do in life is secondary to this main thing that we have to do in our life. Always remember Krishna and never forget him. Those are the only 2 rules. All other rules that you have in life are subservient to that these 2 rules that are there. Okay. So, so one of the things that we will do as we are trying to read the Bhagavad-gita is we keep on going back and forth. Even in chapter 4, you notice that we went back to chapter 4 many times, right? We are on this 42 chapter, but we went back many times. And that is how we are retaining that knowledge. So repetition also will retain knowledge. So one way of retaining knowledge is repeat it. And second way of retaining knowledge is to contrast it. Right. So if you have that, like those who were studying chemistry, that in chemistry, you have to memorize so many things, like they say rectification, you have to memorize it by rote. And so you learn all the properties of hydrogen. And then next chapter is oxygen. You remember oxygen. And then the third day you say, oh, what was hydrogen? Now you don't remember. Right. So one way to remember properties of hydrogen and oxygen are to contrast their properties. That, hydrogen will do this, hydrogen itself burns. Oxygen aids in burning, like that. Is lighter than air or weight, so on and so forth. So you'll always compare and contrast. So similarly, when you want to know, we all understand in general, we have an idea, having read the Bhagavad-gita so many times, in general, we have an idea that how, what Krishna is talking about, essence, we know, and a few verses from here and there, we know, right? But then, what is 3? How is 3 different from 5? What is 4? How does 4 compare to 8? Like that. So that kind of a comparison, that mental connections we have to maintain in our head. So with that intention in mind, I'm showing chapter number 3 of Bhagavad Gita to us, right? Because we have done chapter 4. Chapter 4 we memorized. So chapter 4 starts with, Krishna telling him about knowledge, and he says, I granted this knowledge many years ago, and then you were not. Arjun says, how come? And you don't remember, I remember. And then he goes and gets into sacrifices, and then from sacrifices he goes into knowledge, like that, right? So that's what we did in 4. What did we do in 3? Right? So let's go and look at 3 and see what does 3 talk about in contrast to 4 that we have, right? So 3 is, after 2, of course. And so in 2, Krishna has told him that Buddhi Yoga is saying devotional service to me. So this Arjuna, who in chapter number 1 was in Vishad, he was distressed. And so he's distressed, and now he's saying, oh, Krishna is saying, become a devotee, leave everything. You don't have to fight, become a Mahatma, because Mahatma will never kill his grandfather. So he's relieved, but he's also confused, right? So chapter number 3 starts with Arjuna asking that question to Krishna. And let me just go up over there. I don't know why I went there. Arjuna said, O Janardana, O Keshava, why do you want to engage me in this ghastly warfare if you think that intelligence is better than fruitive work? And we read, there's one of the function of intelligence is?
Yeah.
We read that in chapter 4. Intelligence, one of the property of intelligence. What does intelligence do?
Because I also,
If you are intelligent, what do you do?
To distinguish between good and bad.
That is the basic property, yes. But we didn't talk about that property. We talked about another property.
Yeah, because
Don't remember that? Okay. So let me see if I can bring up 40. Let's see.
Okay.
No,
And did you remember to bring the food?
knowledge is better than the mere sacrifice of material possession.
Sorry?
Oh, okay.
He
Fall down.
he says the sacrifice performed in knowledge is better than.
No, Mataji, the question is that we were saying what was one of the characteristics of intelligence. I'm just trying to see. I'm just trying to bring up that verse. I'm not able to bring it. What was one of the characteristics of intelligence? A sign of intelligence.
Yeah, because I keep forgetting my red chili powder this time is a little spicy. And then I also put the.
Tell me.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hmm.
Mataji, intelligence helps us to it clarifies our doubts, Mataji.
Doubt. No, intelligence not clarifies your doubt. Intelligence puts
If
doubts
you-
in your head. Because
It
we are
puts doubt
intelligence,
in
we
our
will
heads
doubt.
and
If you
then
have doubts, then that means you are intelligent.
You are intelligent, right? Yeah. So see, Arjuna is having doubt here. Why do you want me to engage me in ghastly warfare if you think that intelligence is better than fruitive work, right? So he's not taking every of Krishna's word for granted like that, right? Although he has accepted him as a spiritual master, but he's also asking him in a nice and a polite way, right? He's not there trying to show that he's better than Krishna. So let me ask Krishna these kind of questions. That's not, he's got a genuine doubt and he's trying to clarify that. My intelligence is bewildered by your equivocal instructions. Therefore, please tell me decisively which will be most beneficial for me. So what should I do? Should I fight or should I go to the Himalayas? Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O sinless Arjuna, I have already explained that there are 2 classes of men who try to realize the self. Some are inclined to understand it by empirical philosopher's verification and others by devotional service, right? So that was chapter number 2, 2 parts, right? It's Sankhya Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. So it's talking about 2 kinds of people will be there. Not by merely abstaining from work can one achieve freedom from reaction, nor by renunciation alone can one attain perfection. So this is such an interesting statement that he's making, that, and it is important for us to get this understanding and this knowledge from the Bhagavad-gita, because one might just think, and as Arjuna is saying, that I should not fight, because by not fighting, I am doing a better thing. By not killing my grandparents, by not killing the elders, by not killing the men in general, I'm actually saving the society, right? By not doing this. He's thinking like that. But then Krishna is saying, no, by not merely abstaining from work can one achieve freedom from reaction. So Arjun might be thinking that, if I don't fight, this is much better, because if I fight and kill, then I'll get reactions. But he's saying, ultimately, we know that it is his duty as a Kshatriya to fight. It is his duty to annihilate those who are miscreants, right? That's the job of a Kshatriya. The administrator has to do that, right? So if a king does not do that, then he will suffer the reactions. So sometimes not doing certain things also leads to reactions coming to us, right?
Cindy.
And then he's also saying that don't try to force things onto yourself. Don't try to force abstinence on yourself, because you will do. Everyone is forced to act helplessly according to the qualities he has acquired from the modes of material nature.
Okay.
Therefore, no one can refrain from doing something, not even for a moment. Then he says, and now he's telling you that you try to do that artificially. One who restrains the senses of action, but whose mind dwells on sense objects, certainly deludes himself and is called a pretender. On the other hand, if a sincere person tries to control the active senses by the mind and becomes karma yoga and Krishna consciousness without attachment, he is by far the superior. Okay, so he's making that statement. Perform your prescribed duty, for doing so is better than not working. One cannot even maintain one's physical body without work. Work done as sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. Otherwise, work causes bondage in the material world. But this is also very important, that he's granting him knowledge about, how do you work? How do you go about even your mundane day-to-day activities that you do? You should do them, you should think of them. He's granting that knowledge to him, that do it as a sacrifice for Vishnu. And if you don't do it, then this will cause you bondage in this material world. Right? And so whatever your prescribed duties are, you do everything for Krishna. Okay. And now let's stop over here and look at prescribed duties, right? And try to connect this with chapter number 4 that we have. So prescribed duties, can you tell me some prescribed duties? What is the prescribed duty of a Brahmana?
To teach
To
the
teach.
Vedic knowledge.
Before he can teach, what has the Brahmana got to do?
He has to study himself.
He has to
the
study,
Shastras.
right? So patan, yajan, right? And dan, parigraha, like that. So he has to do this. Okay, so he has to do his prescribed duties. Now, let's see that while he's doing his prescribed duty, okay, does he have to do any sacrifice? A Brahmana, while doing his prescribed duty of reading and teaching.
Mhm.
Yes or yes?
Yes. Yes, Mataji.
Yes, Mataji.
So tell me, so why are you hesitating? Tell me.
Because he needs to.
Yajna,
Go ahead, Mata, Varshana Mataji.
fire yajnas he has to do.
Okay,
Yeah,
fire
yeah,
yajna he has to do. So that sacrifice he has to do. Okay,
Mhm.
right. What other sacrifices do you think a Brahmana has to do?
Though he is doing the prescribed duties, still he has to do so. There will be some restrictions.
And yes, and what kind of restrictions?
Brahmana needs to get his living only the day by day, not to preserve anything.
He should not collect.
He should
Right?
not.
Yeah, the Brahmana does not collect. That is true. So that is a sacrifice, right? And we learn and we learned that when the Mahabharata was over and the Pandavas were practically bankrupt, and at that time Yudhishthira wanted to do some yagya, and yagya means you need money. So Arjuna, who is also known as Dhananjay, was set out to get the Lakshmi. But where is the Lakshmi? The kings are dead. Things that you have a war, and that war was had such a devastating effect on the economy. And so Arjun went to the trash area, and where the Brahmanas used to throw the gold, because Brahmanas were given gold, and Brahmanas, if they were given a donation, they would only take as much as it was required for them to sustain. simply a simple life, and rest of the sona they would just throw it away, because they know they have that knowledge and they have that understanding like that. And there was this person who went to Shiva, and he went to Shiva and he said that, Shiva, give me that touchstone, Parasmani, you touch that and whatever you desire, that can turn into gold, and whatever you desire, you get it. So he said, give me that. And he had pleased Shiva by, doing some sacrifices and austerities. So Shiva said, well, I don't have that, but, there, if you go there to that village and by the river and whatever, and you go, and they'll find a person by the name of Sanatan Goswami. And Sanatan Goswami has got that. He has got that touchstone, Parasmani. So you just tell him that Shivji is asking him to give the touchstone to you. So this man goes there. He's very excited. He goes there, I'm going to get this and I'll be the happiest person in the world, because I will get whatever I want. So he goes there and he says, he conveys the message of Shiva. And so Sanatan Goswami says, okay, yeah, I'll give it to you. And so he says, where is it? He said, you collected, it's in the trash can. So he's very happy. He goes away, he takes it out from the trash can. He desires a few things here and there, and the things appear. He's very happy. So he goes off. And in the night, when he goes to sleep, the thought comes to his mind. And he says that this is such a wonderful thing. This is such a wonderful thing. And why did Sanatan Goswami put it in the trash can if this was such a wonderful thing? So then his mind, that doubt comes into his mind. And then he says that maybe he has got something better than this. That's why he's put this in the trash can. So he goes back and he says, well, you know what, and then expresses his doubts and all that. And he says, well, give me that, what you have, which is better than this, give me that. So he says, okay, I will give it to you. But first thing that you have to do is you have to take this Parasmani that you have, and you have to throw it into the river. So he does that. He throws it away. And he comes and he says, tell me what is the most precious thing. And what does he give?
Spiritual knowledge.
Harinam.
Harinam. Exactly. He gives him Harinam and says, this is the most precious thing that you have. Like that. So anyway, so the Brahmanas don't hoard. Sanatan Goswami will not hoard, will not keep. They know the value. They have that knowledge. They have the knowledge, right? So again, going back to the duties of a Brahmana, he has to do Patan, Yajan, Yajan. So Patan, he's studying, right? So what sacrifice does he have to do when he is studying? Were you students anytime? Were you making any sacrifices?
Get up in the morning. You see, you have to regularize your life, discipline, study in time. So many things, Mataji.
Yeah, regulations.
Don't eat too much.
Don't eat too much.
Don't
Exactly.
Eat too much. Yeah.
Mindful of your company that people you're associating with. Don't open the geography book and put a storybook inside and read, right? Don't do those kind of things. There are so many regulations to there. So there is sacrifice that the Brahmanas also do, right? Similarly, the Kshatriyas have to do the sacrifice of administration. Do you think administering is easy?
No, Mataji, not at all.
Right? Sometimes as like when we are working, we think like, our managers are having a good time. Oh, just the day when I become a manager, my life is going to become best, right? And then lo and behold, your wish is granted. Now 20 people report to you. And then you come back home and tell your spouse that, it's easy to do the work yourself than make anybody else to do the work. Manager, administration, rebellion, politics. So a king has to handle all that. A policeman, right? So a policeman has to be, they have to sacrifice. They are administrators, they are Kshatriyas, and they have to make sure that their body stays, they don't eat too much, otherwise how can they run after the thief like that? So there are sacrifice there. Similarly, the Vaishyas will do some sacrifice, like merchant, right? The merchant is out selling. At least when you're in an office, or if you're in a school, right? The bell goes, or office, 5 o'clock is there, everybody gets up, you go home and you go home, right? You're writing a software, you say, okay, I'm going to stop at line number 50 that I'm going to write. And I was supposed to write 25 more lines, but that's fine. It's 6 o'clock. I'll come back tomorrow and I'll do it, right? But when it comes to a businessman, if there's a customer sitting in front of you and you're selling him something,
Finished
you
it.
don't walk away in the middle of a deal and say, hey, buddy, it's 6 o'clock. I need to leave. So there is sacrifice there also, right? And of course, Shudras have to do a lot of sacrifice, and they have to be obedient. Shudras are the craftsmen and they work for others. So working for others is also very difficult. Like you have to be, listen to the whims and passion of and the demands of the master. Sometimes it's very difficult. People might think that sometimes when you are working for a very rich man, that your life also becomes very good because, you're the driver of a tycoon, very rich man. So of course you'll go to his home and, they might give you some good food or, like that. So it's associating, or you go to his home and then there is air conditioned, right? So it's a nice air conditioned thing. And so they're enjoying that. But because you are serving him and you're his driver, he'll say, okay, now I have a flight, 5 o'clock flight. So I have to leave home at 3 o'clock. So you have to get up. It doesn't matter. You're not going into the flight. So you have to get up like that. So, so people, they do sacrifices. So it's the sacrificing. If Krishna is asking us to do sacrifices, it's not that he's saying that something very new. We do sacrifices all the time, right? For various reasons, we do sacrifices. But the essence that what Gita is trying to say is that you do the sacrifice not for yourself, but you do the sacrifice as Krishna. And that was the biggest thing. In Arjuna's mind, fighting the war and doing that sacrifice, what sacrifice? Slit the throat of your grandfather, right? Bhishma, kill him. That is his sacrifice. And why was he overwhelmed? Because he was doing that sacrifice for himself. He was thinking, okay, I have to do this, but then what is going to happen to me? But then same Arjuna went and put Bhishma Pitama on Sharshaya. That is, he put so many arrows into his body. And I was reading somewhere, it said that he had put so many arrows that there was no space between two arrows, like that. So there was so many in his body. And same Arjuna, but why? Because now he was doing it for Krishna. So any sacrifice, he did sacrifice. Do we think that he didn't feel bad after Bhishma Pitama left? He was attached to it, and it is okay. A normal thing for a soul to get attached to your family members like that. And of course, if they are devotees like Bhishma Pitama, then it's even more. The attachment is even more. So he was attached. So did he miss Bhishma Pitama? Yes, he would have done that, but he did all that for the pleasure of Krishna. So that is the main thing that we have to keep in our mind, right? So here in chapter 3 of Bhagavad-gita also, he's saying that a sincere person who tries to control the active senses by mind and begins karma yoga begins karma yoga and Krishna consciousness without attachment is by far superior. Perform your prescribed duties, for doing so is better than not working when cannot even maintain one's physical body. And what I was saying was that even while performing your prescribed duties, you are talking about you are doing sacrifices, which are talked about in chapter 4. Work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. Otherwise, work causes bondage in this material world. Therefore, O son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction, and in that way, you'll always remain free from bondage. So then he's saying that, well, you know what? I have been talking to you about sacrifice since time immemorial. In the beginning of the creation, the Lord of all creatures sent forth generations of men and demigods, along with sacrifices for Vishnu, and blessed them by saying, be thou happy by this yajna sacrifice, because its performance will bestow upon you everything desirable for living happily and achieving liberation. So when you do the sacrifices, the demigods will be pleased and will also please you. And thus by cooperation between men and demigods, prosperity will reign for everybody. And then in charge of the various necessities of life, the demigods being satisfied by the performance of yajna will supply all necessities to you. But he who enjoys such gifts without offering them to the demigods in return is certainly a thief. The devotees of the Lord are released from all kinds of sins because they eat food, which is offered first for sacrifice. You see, again, the sacrifice is coming in 3. Others who prepare food for personal use they are eating only sin. And then he's saying, for living bodies, they subsist on food grains, which are produced from rains. And then important thing, rains are produced from performance of yajna or sacrifice. And yajna is born of prescribed duties. Right? So then, so what it's a very important thing, which is also being talked about in chapter 4. So he's saying rains are produced by performance of yajna sacrifice, and yajna is born of prescribed duties. What does that mean? Yajna is born of prescribed duties. What is yajna?
Sacrifice.
Sacrifice, right? What are prescribed duties? They differ depending on the varna that you belong, right? Brahmana, Vaishya, Shudra. We talked about these, right? So now what he's saying is that, let me repeat the word that he's saying. Yajna is born of prescribed duties. Yajna is born of prescribed duties. Basically, he's saying is that depending on the type of prescribed duty that you have, you will be doing a particular type of sacrifice. Right? So it's not that the moment we say sacrifice, Havan Kund, ghee, well, he's saying that is sacrifice, but there are other kinds of sacrifices also that you will do. That is what it means that yajna is born of sacrifices, right? So, and the yajna is born of, not sacrifices, born of prescribed duties. So regulative activities are prescribed in the Vedas, and Vedas are directly manifested from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Very important thing over here, because sometimes, people come, let me finish this word and then I'll explain. So regulative activities are prescribed in the Vedas, and Vedas are directly manifested from the personality of Godhead, right? Which words of Bhagavad-gita says Vedas come from Krishna?
15.15.
15.15. And can you repeat that?
Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishto mata smritir jnanam apohanamscha vedescha sarver aham veda vedyo vedanta krid veda vid eva chaham.
Very good. And then who can tell us which word over there is saying that Vedas are coming from Krishna? Sarvasya chaham hidi sanni vrishto matta smritir jnanam apohanam cha vedescha. Okay, something about Vedas is coming now here. Vedescha sarve aham eva vedyo vedanta krit veda vid eva chaham. So which one? Vedanta?
Krit.
Krit, exactly right? So Vedas are directly manifested from Supreme Lord. So he's saying, number one, regulated activities are prescribed in the Vedas. So what kind of activities are prescribed in the Vedas? Basically, how you are going to live your life, right? Depending on you are a man or woman, brahmachari, grahastha, so all that is prescribed in the Vedas, right? And how to take care of your day-to-day needs. In the previous verses, Krishna was saying that, I have set forth generations of men and demigods. So the Vedas will also talk about all those kinds of things there, right? And but they are directly manifested from Supreme Personality of Godhead. Supreme Personality of Godhead has told you to do this, right? And consequently, the all-pervading transcendence is eternally situated in the acts of sacrifice. So basically what he's saying is that because Vedas are coming from Krishna, so they are transcendental, right? Whatever is being prescribed in the Vedas is also transcendental. And if you follow them, that whatever activities you're doing also becomes transcendental. So if the Vedas are saying that, you can do this, you can eat this, if you want to be successful administrator, you do this sacrifice, do that sacrifice, right? Vedas are telling you, but that's only at the superficial level, right? That act of, for example, I just said that Yudhishthira wanted to do Rajasui Yajna or, Ashwamedha Yajna and so on and so forth. So a king is supposed to do those things. It's his prescribed duty to do that, right? Now, so this is prescribed in the scriptures that you are supposed to do this, and he's doing it. But how does the act of, so this is a sacrifice you're doing. How does this become a transcendental act? This will become a transcendental act when, even if you're, any activity that you're doing as a king, and even if you are, which will include doing yajnas and all that kind of stuff, every activity, if you dedicate that to Krishna, right? So as a king, I'm supposed to protect my citizens, right? So as a king, if I have to protect my citizens, I can do it like, with no Krishna consciousness involved, or I can do it with Krishna consciousness involved, right? So again, I could I could do good things. I can have open hospitals, schools, right? I can have border lines, have put armed forces to protect my citizens. That's one way I'm doing my duty, right? But then for the king has that knowledge to understand that what is the right protection for his citizen. What is the biggest duty of a king? What do you think is the biggest duty of a king?
To protect
Take care of the
To
kingdom.
protect
care
the
of-
citizens.
protect the citizens.
To take care of the citizens. And how do you take care of the citizen?
Protect the citizens.
By
Huh?
leading them to Krishna consciousness.
Right. That is the real protection that a king can give to his citizens. That is the duty of a king. The duty of a king is to create that kind of an ambience. And what is happening these days? Everywhere. In companies, you can't talk about God. This way, you can't talk about God. So you see the Kali Yuga, completely opposite. Whereas if you go back to the previous yugas, what are the kings doing? They're establishing temples. Indradhyam temple established, Jagannath temple in Puri, Jagannath Puri, like that, right? So you see, it's the job of a king to make sure. And citizens, it doesn't include just, what is citizens? Who are the citizens of a king?
Everyone under him.
Everyone means the black and the white, the fat and the thin, the tall and the short.
Even animals.
even the
Even
birds.
Everyone.
Even animals, so men and animals.
men, women, children,
Yeah.
everyone, Mataji, who is
Women and
living.
children. Oh, yeah, women and children.
Yeah,
Okay, men,
that's
women, children,
yeah.
animals.
Even the trees, Mataji, he has to take care of everything
Yes,
surrounding the, yes.
exactly. Citizen means that whatever is your land, everything in that land, which will also include the animals, the rivers. So a king has to make sure rivers should not be polluted. What is the king doing? What is the president of a country doing who's the king, right? What is he doing? What is she doing? So when a king is taking care of all these things, right? What is that knowledge that the king will get, which will make him treat men and animals in the same way, in the sense that, don't open slaughterhouses.
Because there
What
is
knowledge
only
is
one
that?
creator like Krishna. So we are all brothers and sisters.
Exactly. Mame Vansha Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. We are all children of Krishna. So that knowledge has got to, even if you're a king, you need to have that transcendental knowledge there. Otherwise, whatever you do is useless. Shrama eva hi kevalam, just some useless sacrifice you did, right? So when you start, bringing in Krishna consciousness into these duties that have been prescribed to you, then your acts, the all-pervading transcendent, then your acts also become transcendental. So one who does not follow in human life, the cycle of sacrifice thus established by the Vedas, certainly leads a life full of sin, living only for the satisfaction of senses. Such a person lives uselessly. But for one who takes pleasure in the self, whose human life is one of self-realization, and who is satisfied in the self only, fully satiated, for him there is no duty. Now, do you notice that there is self, small, lowercase s, and then there is self here, uppercase F, self. You see? So self uppercase is the super soul, and self lowercase is just your soul. So not only do you have to know about that I am a soul, right? That is something that the Gyanis also do, right? They come, remember I was talking about the plotting a graph on the x-axis, y-axis, and I said that, when you're totally material, you're on the negative side of the y-axis, right? So if you're drawing a graph, you're on the lower side, south, right? And then you come to the middle where you say the material existence is gone. So lower is all materialistic. Material existence is gone because you have realized that I am a soul, okay? Now, after you realize that you are a soul, what is that knowledge going to do to you? After you realize that I am a soul, what are you going to do? you can get even worse, because now you know that I'm indestructible.
Mm.
I cannot be bad. I can become very obnoxious when I do that, right? So that is why this verse is saying that, you should also have knowledge of the self with the uppercase S. So when I'm here in this material world and I am governed by the laws of material nature, right? And I'm thrown into this particular body, and I'm thinking that I am this body, right? When I think that I am this body, then and why do I think? What is the factor that makes me think that I am this body? What is that called? There are 8 energies. The 8th energy.
So
Not senses, energies. What are the 8 energies of Krishna? Tell me.
6 opulences are there.
No, not opulences, energies. 6 energies of Krishna. Bhumi,
Is most
Apo, Analo, Vayu, Kham, Mano, Buddhir, Evacha, Ahankara, Kityame, Bhinna, Prakriti, Ashtada. Right? Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and
False ego.
Ego.
false ego.
Yeah.
Okay, now answer my question.
Ego
False
is
ego.
the only thing
False
that
ego.
yeah.
Yeah, false ego. What is true ego? True ego is that I'm a soul, right? True ego is I'm soul. Half true ego, well, is that I'm a soul, half-baked ego. And then false ego is when I think I'm a body. And true ego is when I understand that I'm a servant of Krishna. That is true and a good ego, right? To have, who am I? I'm a servant of Krishna. Have that knowledge in your heart, right? So it is because of this false ego that we get thrown into this body and we start thinking that we are the body, right? So this is how it operates on us. And that is that, let's take the example of and one of the teachers gives example, I really like this, that suppose you go to a cinema hall. Anybody went to cinema hall ever? Never?
Long time ago.
Yes? Okay. So when you go to the cinema hall, it's dark, right? And you come from outside. They have dim light before the movie starts. There's dim light. You go and find your seat. And then you look left and right to see who are sitting next to me, right? Maybe your family or maybe not, right? At least maybe on one side, somebody else. So you just make sure that, you can see them, right? And then what do? They dim the lights. And then the screen, things come on the screen and you start seeing the screen, right? And then when we were teenagers, something happened to the heroine and then we would start crying, right? So, and then so toward the 2 hour of the movie, we are completely focused on the screen and we have become a part of what is happening on the screen, although it is not true, right? So this is exactly what happens to us through the false ego. And while you are watching that movie, you're so engrossed in that movie, you have so become one, right? The hero's pain is your pain. When the villain comes to the hero, you scrinch like that, right? We are completely engrossed in that. We think that's what it is. And that's what happens to us also in this body. When somebody tries to come and harm this body, we get, inside the soul is feeling like, oh, Krishna is saying, oh no, but you are indestructible, indestroyable, immutable, cannot be dried, cannot be wet, like that. So while you were engrossed in that movie, you even forgot who was on your left and who was on your right. Happened like that to anybody?
Yes.
Right? So this is
Many
how
times.
the false ego operates. And then when the movie ends and the lights are on, and then you look sheepishly on both the sides to see, like, did they catch me crying in the movie? Like that. So then you start to see. So same thing happens to us also, that our knowledge and everything is completely focused on the material world. We forget that there is somebody by our side all the time. All the time that I was watching that movie on the screen, this fellow was sitting right next to me. When I was crying, when I was laughing, when I was agitated, when I was nervous, all the time as I was watching this movie, this person on the next seat was there. I just did not turn my head when I was scared to say, take care of me, I'm scared. Right? What to talk about three-dimensional movies where the sphere comes straight at you from the screen, right? So that person sitting next to you is who is that person sitting next to us?
Super soul.
Krishna is the super soul.
Right? So here they are saying in chapter number 3 that self and self. So, but for one who takes pleasure in the self. So now when you know that such a handsome guy is sitting right next to you in the form of Krishna, what am I doing watching, the Om Puris and the Shiv Puris on the screen? Take pleasure in Krishna. He's a reservoir of Krishna, right? And then he says a self-realized man has no purpose to fulfill in the discharge of his prescribed duties. So he doesn't have to do his prescribed duties because he knows he's a soul. But then, there's no reason for you not to do it also. And why is he saying that, not to do it also? Because he's saying, well, if you're realized, still continue to do your duty. Why? Because others will learn from you. Like he gives the example of Janaka. Kings such as Janaka attained perfection solely by performance of prescribed duties. Therefore, just for the sake of educating the people in general, you should perform your work. Right? So you should do your work. He's giving that gyan. Because whatever great action a great man performs, common men are going to follow that, right? And then he gives his own example. He says, I don't have to do letting. I don't have no need to obtain anything. Why? Because Varshana Mataji was talking about the 6 opulences, right? He owns everything. Why does he need anything? Right? From whom does he need? He owns everything possible, right? But then he says that if I don't do my job properly, if I ever fail to engage in carefully performing prescribed duties, certainly all men will follow my path, right? And then if that's going to happen, then all these worlds that he has created, they will be all ruined, right? So he's saying that as ignorant people, what's the opposite of ignorant?
Learned.
Learned or knowledgeable, right? So without knowledge, you will perform the duty with attachment to this. So now this knowledge that Krishna is talking about in chapter number 4 is being alluded here also, that because you are ignorant, because you don't have that knowledge that you are a soul, because you don't have a knowledge what your main role and purpose in life is, right? So you will do your duty, but you'll be attached to the results of the duty, the results of your act, right? But the learned men will also do the same thing, but they don't have that attachment, and they will also do it just to show to people that, you have to, this is the right way to go. So that's why you will see that Krishna would perform yagyas, he'll do prayers, he will touch the feet of his spiritual master, he will get a spiritual master in first place, and like that, right? And then very interesting thing here is that, so as not, how do we handle, now we got Big Bum so knowledgeable, but how do we handle those who are ignorant and those who are following that particular path? And this is one of the mistakes that we do when we are enthusiastic Krishna conscious followers, is that we will see, we learned this, we learned that, we learned we are the soul, we learned this is bad, this is good. And then we turn and start preaching in our own families, to our own people, or to our friends. And then we start saying, you are bad, you shouldn't do it, this is very bad, you'll go to hell. The people don't like it. They are ignorant. They are not at your consciousness level. And then what they do, they said, this Krishna is very dangerous. I don't want to go near him. This man is bad. This woman is bad. Let me shun. So whatever little chance that you had of preaching to them or bringing them back to that are gone, because you distanced them from ourselves, right? So Krishna is saying that, let them do. Let them do whatever they want to do. They want to go to restaurants, let them go to restaurants. But once in a while, tell them that, hey, did you try the Govindas? Right? So a person who goes to restaurants, after some time gets bored of that restaurant because they serve the same food every time. So they're looking for new things. You tell them you have gone to Govindas, they will go. There are chances they will go. So they will get prasadam. So slowly but slowly you have to do that. So here Krishna is saying that just let them be, but once in a while try to engage them a little bit, right? Okay, fine, you're going that way, or you want going to do shopping over there. Well, can you bring me this thing? And what is that thing you ask them to bring? Well, you ask them to bring some paneer, which you are going to use for the temple, right? So engage them like that in all sort of activities, and then slowly they will come. So you have to be, right? And then of the spirit soul bewildered by the influence of false ego thinks himself the doer of all activity, right? And he's saying that you don't do the activity. The body, it's made up of material matter. So it will do things according to the modes of material nature. The body will do, and the soul, because it under false ego thinks that, I am this body. So soul is thinking, I am the doer, right? So then he's saying, but the one who is in knowledge. So we did not notice that much, but chapter 3, we are talking about karma yoga, right? But Krishna is talking about knowledge so much here in this chapter also. Right? So one who is in knowledge of the absolute truth, right, does not engage himself in the senses and sense gratification, because he knows, what it means to work in devotion, that is for Krishna, and what it means to work for fruitive results. I just don't want to, be involved in that. I'll just do my duty. Karmanevadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana, right? So he'll just do that. So this I already covered, 29. So he says that, he's saying, and this is very important words here. Therefore, O Arjuna, surrendering all your work unto me with full knowledge of me, without desire for profit, with no claims to proprietorship, and free from lethargy, fight, right? Again. And he's asking him to fight, but he's saying fight with full knowledge of me. Right? Why? Because those persons who execute their duties according to my injunctions and who follow their teaching faithfully without envy will become free from the bondage of fruitive action. So even if you go and kill your people, if you are supposed to do that as in that situation where Arjuna was, right, where there was a bad king there, right, Duryodhana, and it was his duty as a Kshatriya to remove a bad king and put a good one over there. So that was his duty. So if you do that as an act for Krishna, then you will be free from the bondage. Okay. So here he's saying, therefore, surrendering all your works unto me with full knowledge of me, without desire and free from lethargy, he's saying, Arjun, fight, right? Because Arjun had said in the previous chapters, I will not fight, right? So, Mai sarvani karmani sanyas adhyatma chetasa nirashir nirmamo bhutva yudhyasva vikata jvaraha. So you yudhyasva, you fight the war, right? Now, if you go to chapter number 4, where we are on the very last verse of this chapter, let's see what is Krishna asking Arjun to do. Tasmat ajnana sambhutam hritsam gyan asinatmanaha chitvenam samshayam yogam atisht utishta Bhārata. So he's doing the translation, and he's saying, therefore the doubts which have arisen in your heart out of ignorance should be slashed by the weapon of knowledge. Armed with yoga, O Bhārata, stand and fight. So now, the second time he's telling Arjuna that you fight, because now I have given you this knowledge, and they will be slashed by the weapon of knowledge, that whatever ignorance you had, you did not know, right? So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, he says that the yoga system instruct, and Prabhupada is kind of, summarizing whatever has been taught in chapter number 4. Prabhupada is going to summarize in the purport here. So the yoga system instructed in this chapter is called Sanatana Yoga, or eternal activities performed by the living entity. This yoga has 2 divisions of sacrificial actions. One is called sacrifice of one's material possession, and other is called knowledge of self. And both are sacrifices, right? Knowledge of self, which is a pure spiritual activity. If sacrifice of one's material position is not dovetail for spiritual realization, then such sacrifice becomes material. But one who performs such sacrifices with a spiritual objective or in devotional service makes a perfect sacrifice. When we come, what is a perfect sacrifice?
When you
Which is
surrender
done for
completely.
One at a time.
Complete surrender.
What is Prabhupada saying about perfect sacrifice?
Prabhupada is saying that after having spiritual realization, only you should perform, and it should not be material. Must have that knowledge that you are performing.
When you
Yeah,
are
so
doing the sacrifice in
Devotion-
devotional service,
right.
Devotional
only the
service.
perfect sacrifice.
And what's the objective of such sacrifice? Is it a material
This is
objective? Is it a spiritual objective?
spiritual.
Spiritual, right? So a perfect sacrifice is one, because sacrifice is always done for some reason, right? Some goal, right? You want rains, you do some sacrifice. You want a sun, you will do some sacrifice. But when a sacrifice has got a spiritual objective, right? So in the life of Srila Prabhupada, what do you think would be a sacrifice he made? And what was the spiritual objective?
He just left his family and then he went to so far to do the Krishna conscious preaching.
Spread the Krishna consciousness
Spread the
movement, right? So he gave up attachment to his family. He did that sacrifice, but it was for, why did he leave that? Somebody can just say that, a lot of people leave their wives. It's not that Prabhupada left his wife.
But
A
his
lot of people leave it. They are divorces, right? Yeah.
But his guru's advice.
Yeah. See, when people divorce, they are doing it for themselves. They're not doing it for Krishna most of the time. Right? But he left his family because the wife was becoming an obstacle in his spreading Krishna consciousness. Right? Prabhupada wrote the Bhagavad-gita, Bhagavatam manuscript. And what did the wife do? Out of ignorance, sold it off, right? And bought some biscuits to be had with tea. Right? Which in the first place, Prabhupada was saying, don't take tea. So he left that for a higher purpose. And the higher purpose was he wanted to spread Krishna consciousness. Why? Because his spiritual master, like you said, had asked him to spread Krishna consciousness in this world. Right? Like that. So going back to our verse from here, that is the perfect segue.
Another thing, Mataji, whatever sacrifice you make, even if it is material, like you say, it is, we are serving, we are buying a cloth, but buying it for the Lord. We are cooking, but cooking it for the Lord. So that also becomes a material, also becomes a spiritual, if it is offered to the Lord.
Yes, yes, yeah. Dharma arpanam brahma have, right? Anything that you do for Krishna becomes Brahma, right? 4.24, we read that here. Yeah. So when we come to spiritual activities, we find that they are also divided into two, namely understanding of one's own self or one's constitution and the truth regarding the spiritual personality of Godhead. So now, as you were traversing on the y-axis, as I was talking about, right? So you were materialistic, or not you, one is materialistic, negative. Then 0, you come to understand that you are not the body, you are the soul, right? And then up there on the positive side of the y-axis is when you understand that there is Krishna and what is my relationship with Krishna. What is my relationship with Krishna?
He is the Father.
He's the super soul. He is always with me.
What is
In
my relationship
all
with Krishna? I'm looking for a word. What type of
Das
relationship?
and Dasi.
Das, yes, I'm a servant of Krishna. That is our relationship. And that is a relationship that we focus on in the Gauriya Madhva Sampradaya. We focus first on that. We just don't go up and say that I'm going to become a gopi and I'm going to have an affair with Krishna. Or Krishna is my buddy, so I'm like Arjun, right? Or I want to mother Krishna, I'm Yashoda. No, we start with, I'm a servant of Krishna. That is my true relationship with Krishna. Okay? So you do that, so you're going on to the positive side. And so here, one who follows the path of Bhagavad-gita as it is can very easily understand these two important divisions of spiritual knowledge. For him, there is no difficulty in obtaining perfect knowledge of the self as part and parcel of the Lord. But such understanding is beneficial for a person can easily, and such understanding is beneficial for such a person can easily understand the transcendental activities of the Lord. In the beginning of this chapter, the transcendental activities of the Lord were discussed by the Lord himself, right? And what was one transcendental activity that was described of the Lord? What transcendental thing that he was doing that Arjuna could not have done in the beginning of the chapter 4?
He spoke to the sun god viewers. So.
Yeah, he was speaking to Sun God millions of years ago, right?
Yeah.
So he's eternal. That's a transcendental act. He spoke there, right? And so Janma Karma Cha Me Divyam Oevam Yo Veti Tatvata, in 9th verse of the 4th chapter, he says that if you understand my birth, because Arjuna is saying, how can you do that? You are so young and you were born and all that, right? But he's saying, you have to understand what my birth means, actually, right? So Janma Karma Cha, when you understand that, again, when you get knowledge of that. So one who does not understand the instructions of the Gita is faithless and is to be considered to be misusing the fragmental independence awarded to him by the Lord. In spite of such instructions, one who does not understand the real nature of the Lord as eternal, blissful, all knowledgeable. What is the Sanskrit words for eternal, blissful, all knowledgeable? What are the Sanskrit words?
Satchitanand Vigraha.
Satchidanand, very good. personality of Godhead, it's certainly fool number one. Ignorance can be removed by gradual acceptance of the principles of Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is awakened by different types of sacrifices. Now, here's the thing. Krishna consciousness is awakened by different types of sacrifices to the demigods. And that's why you will notice that in chapter number 3, Krishna says, in the beginning, I set forth generations of men and demigods and instructions on how to do sacrifices for Vishnu, right? So one might ask, like, what? Why did you tell me that I should do sacrifices to demigod? Because slowly over a period of time, when you do that, your Krishna consciousness will be awakened, right? By sacrifices to demigods, sacrifices to Brahman, sacrifices in celibacy, in household life, in controlling the senses, in practicing mystic yoga, in penance, in foregoing material possessions, in studying the Vedas. So he talked about these things, controlling the senses, etc. He talked about that in chapter 3 also. And Arjuna, I didn't complete the whole chapter 3, where Arjuna later on will ask him, like, what is it that forces me to do things that I don't like? What is it that forces me to do sin? And Krishna says, it is lust only, Arjuna.
Only.
And then he'll ask, oh, but where is lust? Where is lust? Who is this enemy lust? Where is the lust? Right? Which is forcing me, right? Like I can be standing by a well and somebody can push me into the well. So there is somebody who's doing this for me, right? Right? If I'm in a train, somebody wants to throw me out of the train, somebody has to push me, right? Like that. So who is this lust? Where is this lust? He's asking. Where is lust? Krishna says, in the mind, in the intelligence, and in the senses. There are 3 places where they are the sitting places of the lust. Mind, intelligence, and the senses, right? That is where lust will be there. Lusty senses will go after lusty objects. Lusty mind will cook up lusty ideas. And lusty intelligence will discriminate and in favor of lusty things, right? Like that. So he says, then he gave a very nice example of how, an embryo is covered by the womb, and, as smoke is covered by fire, and so on and so forth. Fire is covered by smoke. He had given, so similarly, our senses also get covered to different degrees by this lust. So he talked about that, and he has said that you should control the senses. But then, how will I control the senses? Until and unless I understand.
Mind and intelligence.
And senses.
Senses.
Yeah. So how will I be able to control my senses? Right? To be able to control my senses, I have to first. So what happens? I want to eat. Everybody likes to eat. I want to eat more and more and more and more, right? And there's so much of research going on these days on how you can eat more, right? They add certain chemicals to the food, especially all these processed foods and these potato chips and burgers and all that. What they do is they add certain chemicals so that you don't feel satiated. So you will eat it and you'll want more. You will eat it, you'll want more. The more you eat it, the more you'll want to eat it. That's why there's a book called Supersize It. If you get a chance, you should read it. Supersize It, but not abandoning the Gita to read it, but as a side reading. You read it. Supersize It means what? Instead of having half milkshake, or what are the sizes? Small, medium, and large. Then there is a super large or supersize it. Why are you asking them to supersize it? Because of the chemicals they are asking. And the lust is increasing by these things over there, right? So, so Krishna is saying that this is where the lust is in these places. So until and unless we don't understand who I am, who God is, and I don't follow the regulative principles that I won't eat anything until it has been offered to Krishna, it'll be very difficult for me to control my senses. The only way that you can control our senses is to try to please the senses of Krishna. Because when you please the senses of Krishna, your senses are automatically pleased. When you pour water at the roots of the tree, all other parts of the tree get watered and they get nourished, right? So our senses will also get nourished when we learn that we have to nourish and satisfy Krishna. Like that, right? So, so these are all of these are known as sacrifice of the whole list he has said, and all of them are based on regulated action. But within all these activities, the important factor is self-realization. One who seeks that objective, because remember they were talking about 2 parts of devotional service. First is self-realization. So one who seeks that objective is the real student of Bhagavad-gita, but one who doubts the authority of Krishna falls back. One is therefore advised to study Bhagavad-gita or any other scripture under a bona fide spiritual master with service and surrender. A bona fide spiritual master. So which verse says that you should study under a bona fide spiritual master?
4.34.
Yes, very good. 4.1. What is that verse?
Tat vidhi pranipatena
Pranipatena, yeah.
pariprashnena.
Yeah, very nice. So a bona fide spiritual master is in the disciplic succession from time eternal, and he does not deviate at all from the instructions of the Supreme Lord, as they were imparted millions of years ago to the Sun God, from whom the instructions of Bhagavad Gita have come down to the earthly kingdom, right? From Sun God, it came to Ishkvaku, right? Like that. One should therefore follow the paths of Bhagavad Gita as it is expressed in the Gita itself, and beware of self-interested people after personal aggrandizement who deviate others from the actual path. The Lord is definitely the Supreme Person, and his activities are transcendental. One who understands this is a liberated person from the very beginning of his study of Bhagavad Gita. Right? So what does it mean when we say he's a liberated person from the very beginning of the study of Bhagavad Gita? How come I become liberated just in the beginning? How is that possible? Right? It has got to do with the path that you have chosen, right? If you have already boarded a plane that's going to Delhi, the moment you board the plane, you will reach Delhi. Why? Because that flight is supposed to go to Delhi. So just by boarding onto the Bhagavad Gita and saying that, okay, now with faith, I'm accepting whatever is there in Krishna. So in the future, we can see that you will be liberated. So here, Bhagavad Gita is saying he's already liberated. What that means is not that you get liberated on the first chapter, Dharma Kshetra, Kurukshetra, and I'm liberated. No. It's that you are on the right path now. So liberation is guaranteed. Now, how many lifetime it's going to take, or how many minutes or seconds it's going to take is entirely in our hands, right? But we need the blessings of a spiritual master, association of devotees, reading of the scripture, chanting of Bhagavad Gita, reading Srimad Bhagavatam, going to the holy dham, or residing in dham or dham-like places. That is how our devotional service is going to increase there. Okay, so I'll stop here now. We are 9 minutes over the top of the hour. Any reflections? Any questions? Or anything that you learned today that you're carrying back with you?
Yes, Mataji, I like that line, like whatever you do, like reading Vedas, doing the devotional service or whatever, any activity, on top of that, you have to be self-realized person.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
line like that. So I like that so much.
Yeah. What else?
Oh, Hare Krishna, Mataji, Hare Krishna, everybody.
Haribol.
When you were reading chapter 3 today, and Bhagavad Gita 3:14, it says all living bodies subsist on food grains, which are produced from rains. Rains are produced by performance of sacrifice, yajna, and yajna is born of prescribed duties. So when I was reading that earlier, a few months ago, I was wondering, at this time we had severe drought, especially here in Central Valley. And I was wondering, why are we having this drought and why are we not having the rain? Has it anything to do with what it is saying here, that on general, we are not doing our prescribed duties? So I was wondering that, and then few months after, not too long ago, not too much after that, we had a downpour, real floods and everything. I'm wondering if that is really related to our prescribed duties, why these things are happening.
Yes. And actually, all these vagaries of nature, there are tap, right? There are 3 kinds of miseries. What are these 3 kinds?
Adi Devik, Adi Bhautik, and
Oh.
Adhyatmik.
Yeah, Adhyatmik, Adi Bhautik, right? So Adi Devik. Adi Devik is the mysteries that you get coming from the demigods. And who are demigods? They are controllers of this material world. They control. So there'll be demigods who will make sure earthquakes happen, fires happen, and things like that. And actually, Hanumat Preksha Swami Maharaj in one of his class was saying that if you have noticed that around the Hollywood, Bollywood area in that Los Angeles, that side, there are so many fires that happen. So he says that when people indulge in illicit sex, then that place catches fire a lot, right? And then when we talk about rains, rains are going to come and you do yagyas, rains do fall. Harinam Sankirtan is also a yagya. But we have to be very careful, and which can bring rain. But then, don't take it too literally also, in the sense that if you had Harinam, if you chanted Hare Krishna Mahamantra and the rain started coming and it's too much rain and somebody says, now you stop chanting because it's raining. So don't do that like that, right? Couple of things also we have to understand is that all these natural disasters that happen in a particular place is the karmic reaction, the sum total karmic reaction, the sum total karmic reactions of everybody who's living there in that area.
I was just about to ask that what about this earthquake that happened that killed so many people and so many kids and innocent people and older people? So is it still the karmic reaction?
Yeah. So I like to latch on to the word innocent kids.
Yeah.
So
Then
define innocence, right? We have to define innocence. What is innocence at a bodily level and at a spiritual level, right? So remember, a child is somebody who died recently.
yeah.
Oh,
and
yeah.
has now taken on a small body, right? And has got its own part of karmic reactions, right? So we might just think that small child, cute, soft. What did the child do? Why is the child born blind? What did the child do, right? So if we just look at this time spectrum, this lifetime, it's very difficult to explain. But if you expand your time spectrum and you go and start looking at the child's previous life, then we understand, right? So like is a Gahana 4.17 is very difficult to understand karmic reactions, right? So one is paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha duskritam. So vinashaya cha duskritam will happen, some duskritanas will go. Some innocent people, and like I was telling you earlier that last week also, that the tendency, where is lust? Lust is in the senses, it's in the mind, and it's also in the intelligence, right?
Yes.
So don't think that lust is not there in the senses of a child. It's just that the child's senses are not developed enough for him to indulge in that, right? The child can think still. There are children who think very nonsense things, right? Like that. So
all
Mataji,
these
Dhritarashtra
disasters-
also.
Okay.
Sorry,
But these-
Mataji, please
yes, sir.
carry on. Thought.
These natural disasters that occur everywhere, like even here, so many tornadoes, hurricanes, houses are just blown off and so many people die and their homes are displaced. Is it all karmic reaction?
everything is karmic reaction. And a very interesting thing is that I really like the word you said, even here these happen.
No, a lot happened in the US.
Yeah. I'm saying I'm really
Yeah.
latching on to the sentence that you said, that even here they happen, which should be an eye opener to everybody. Now, yeah, that even in America they're happening. A person sitting in India might think or thinks, right? You go to America, it's just ice cream and swimming suit. No, America has got its own set of disasters and calamities. And what side, I'm not casting fingers at anybody, but what sort of a life do you think it is when you're covered with snow? Right? Tornadoes. They give them names, like one year it is a man, another year it's a woman, another year it's a man, like that, right? They give names to these tornadoes. Ian.
Yeah,
like
they go from
Christina.
alphabetical order. They start
Yeah,
with A and then
yeah. So they give these names, right? So the destruction and the intensity, it's not that India doesn't have tornadoes, India doesn't have earthquakes and things like that, but India still is a more religious place where, despite everything, whatever's happening, still has got a little bit bigger coda. So the disasters there will have a little lesser effect than the disasters that happen over here. I mean, you go to Florida, you go to, that side of USA, every year it's a nuisance.
Mm.
Every year.
But then
And
is it that the karmic reactions are concentrated in certain parts of the world?
Yes, they will be concentrated. That's why, Africa, famine.
Hmm.
So certain souls will go there, right?
Sometimes, Mataji, we are hearing a lot of like murders are going on. Like if people are killing people nowadays, like every day, if you listen here and there, you can see that. So that is the single karmic reaction, means it depends upon the person, or that is also like it's like the people are so many people is in that place that they are being murdered. It's like particular one spot murder is it's happening. Like last week we had 2 people got murdered in the same area, and this week I heard that again 3 people are murdered in the same area. So that is also the karmic reaction of that place the people are living, or it's only the soul, means it's only depends on the person.
It's always a very nice, interesting question to ask, right? It's a very interesting question to ask that, if somebody is killing me, is it because I'm undergoing my karmic reactions to that? Or is it the first time he's killing me and I'll kill him in my next birth? Right? There are 2 ways of looking at it. Which one do you think is a better one?
No, but then, Mataji, these mass shootings that happen at one time, 20, 30 people get killed, then is that also those people's karmic reactions?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Hmm.
Because you do not know what they did in their previous births. Remember, there's a part of karma which has got good and it has got bad. Right? Bad karma, good karma. It's all there. And then when Chitragupta is making out the bodies and Brahmaji is creating and all that, they will take a handful of this and maybe 2 handfuls of that. And according to that, your life will be done. And the soul also has a say in what it wants to pick up, because the soul wants to evolve in every life.
Yes, Mataji, for Dhritarashtra also it was said that he asked Krishna that why am I blind? And he gives his karmic reactions. 50 lifetimes ago he did that, and why my 100 sons died in front of me. So for that also he had to do good karmas to get 100 sons. So that is
exactly.
So,
yes, very good citation. Yeah.
So Mataji, the soul will take birth immediately, or he or she has to wait.
It depends on what the soul has done, right? It depends on what soul has done. A soul could go to hellish planets to suffer punishments and then take a body. Sometimes, 4.17, stick to that verse. It says it's very difficult to explain the reaction to the karmic reactions, how it happens. Imagine, like you said, there are mass shootings, right? So imagine how it is arranged. Everybody who had to be killed arrives on that spot at the exact time, right? And some cancel their other appointments and then show up on that place to be killed, right?
And what about the place, Mataji, then, like what I asked, that there is a particular place that people are getting killed, like...
So I don't understand your question about the place. But what is the question there?
Suppose where I'm living. So last week, there like 5 people got killed in particular in this place. And then again this week, 5 people got killed in particular in this place. So it has anything to do with that place, or it's only that single people's, like the people's karmic reaction that they have to be in that place?
It's the people's, right? It has nothing to do with the place.
It's got nothing to do with the place. Yeah.
Mataji, but a few years ago, just 5-7 years ago only, all the people from here had gone for yatra, and they went in the bus, and the whole bus, you see, fell down in the valley, and all of them died. They were in the pilgrimage. So I was just thinking about that at this moment, that they died because one thing, they died in the pilgrimage. So that means they must have done some good karmas that which took them to the pilgrimage, and they died there, because dying at the pilgrimage is a good sign. And you see, and their previous karmas which they were carrying with them, they are also over. It seems, I felt that probably they are now neutralized. You see, that is how God gave them a death at that particular place.
Yeah. We can go on speculating on that because we don't know, right? We can say this could have happened, that could have happened. Sometimes, these are drama and plays also they are done, because they are devotee, they don't care, they died, right? Second is that, not everybody who goes to a pilgrimage is really a devotee, true devotee, 100% evolved, that they died in the dham. They might get, also Vaisheshika Prabhu, by the way, says that if you die on a plane going to the dham, it's as good as you died in the dham. Just for our things who fly. So so like, again, going back again to, it's very, very complicated how you die. There was a story that Naveen Prabhu was telling about a young man, very full-fledged, very accomplished book distributor, and he used to go about on a motorcycle. So he was driving a motorcycle, I think somewhere in the north of USA, and then a big truck came and hit him from the back. So you see, Sutapa Mataji, it can happen anywhere to anyone. And so this truck came and hit him. He flew from his motorcycle, and his whole body flew over the boundary or the hedge that was surrounding a house, and he falls bang in the middle of the house where Harinam Sankirtan was going on.
Wow.
Now you tell me, how is all this arranged? Which law of physics arranges that?
Mataji, sometimes I heard like a few months ago, like someone was coming back from the temple. It's not about ISKCON, but coming back from temple, and they met an accident and they died. So what we can think about that?
What you can think about that? You have a number one, Kamala Jalamala, Kamala Talamala, Jivana, Kamala Jaladala, Jivana Talamala. What that means is that, our life is like a drop of water which is on a
Lotus,
this one,
leaves.
The leaf of a lotus, and how it can move this way and that way. Your life can be done everywhere, right? Now, if you want to think and want to analyze what happened to that soul, again, I would say this will be speculation, right? Because we don't know. That soul could be thinking of Krishna, which is very good, right? Antakale chamameva smaranam muktva kaleranam. If you died at the time thinking about Krishna, then that's very good, right? That person could also be thinking like, why did I put $100 in the hundi? I should have put only 50. So you don't know what the person's thoughts are going to be, but then you can definitely predict that the kind of thoughts that you're thinking throughout your life will be the majority ones that will come there at that end. But again, it's very difficult, because as Vaisheshika Prabhu once says that one of his godbrothers or devotee, for sure, he met with a near-death experience. And so he thought that he was about to die. And at that time, a jingle that he had heard in his childhood came to his mind, and not Hare Krishna mantra. So that is why, if you think that, I've been chanting 16 rounds, 18, 20, 25, 64 rounds, that I'm very well covered, and I'm, yes, definitely. What else do? I eat only prasadam, I read only Bhagavatam, I attend Krishna's lectures and all that, It's so in the end, it'll be very easy for me to remember Krishna. No. Hamam, 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 har ghar ka hai dulara. This might come to your mind, right? So that is why a devotee understands his position, that I'm a servant of Krishna, and what I'm going to remember at the time of my death is also controlled by Krishna. So he will just humbly pray to Krishna and then say that, I want to come to you, so please let me Katho smara, kritam smara, katho smara, kritam smara, right? In Isha Prashida, he's saying, please remember what I have done for you, and at the time of my death, because my mind will be so confused. But you please remember what I have done. And Prabhupada says in that purport that, for such a devotee, Krishna will make sure that he remembers Krishna at the time of death. So all that we have to focus on is being a good devotee in this life, where we are right now.
Okay, Mataji, thank you so much. I had to leave. So
Thank
Hare
you for asking
Krishna,
that
Hare
question.
Bol.
Yeah. And by the way, like we tend to talk about 5 people died and we are agitated, 5 people died. I want you to do the research and tell me how many cows are slaughtered every day in America, in your city, or meat comes up like that, So Bhagavad-gita is teaching you that Mame Vansho Jeevaloke, that is also killing, that is also bad. And we should be equally agitated, right? Like that. But yeah, I mean, of course, human form of life is always the best form of life. So we always grieve when a human body leaves. Talking about that, Namazia Mataji's mother is not feeling well. So maybe we can end the class today with chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra 3 times. And I want one of you to take the lead in chanting and others will just, follow. So anybody wants to lead? And
And Mataji,
you want to? Please go ahead. Yes, please. Yeah.
Mataji, can I say it in a tune or no?
You want to sing in the tune? Okay, say it in the tune, but 3 times. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, please. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Very nice.
Hare
Thank
Bol,
you. Thank you
Mataji.
so much, Mataji.
Hare Bol.
Thank
you very much.
Thank you so much, Shraddha Mataji.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Patitanam Pavnebhyo,
Pavnebhyo,
Vaishnavebhyo
Vaishnavebhyo.
Namo Namaः. Go Premanande, Hari Hari.
Hare Bol.